Welcome back. If you haven't seen part 1, then go and check out that first. I'll put a link down in the description so you can go and see that. To recap quickly though, we've just got back from a 16-night cruise to Iceland and Greenland on Princess Cruises Caribbean Princess. So far we've been to Falmouth in Cornwall, Cobh in Ireland and Akureyri in Iceland. The next stop then is Isafjordur, and I think we had to cross inside the Arctic Circle to get there. In any case, we've all been given a special certificate to prove that we crossed it, and at some point I'm going to frame this and hang it on my wall because that's a bucket list item crossed off. The fjord here is stunning and I would have loved to have gone kayaking here, but the cost of the official kayaking excursion from Princess was about $180 per person, I think. For 4 of us that's $720, which is really expensive. I'd hoped I might be able to find a local company hiring out kayaks when we got here, but as it happens it was so windy that all of the kayaking excursions had been cancelled anyway. So we left the kids to fend for themselves on the ship and went off for a walk. So if you walk out of the port and past the town, you'll eventually come to a path up a hill and some metal steps. We went up the steps and followed the path, not really having a clue where we were going, to be honest. Once the main path stopped, it became quite rocky, so we clambered down a bit until we eventually reached a much more well-defined path. We walked for quite a distance and the views were absolutely amazing. The wind was starting to pick up quite a bit though, so we decided to head back the way we came to the ship. Overall, we walked about 9 kilometers. We had a bit of a look around Isafjordur itself on the way back, but honestly, even though it's a pretty little town, there isn't a huge amount there. It's the sort of place you'd want to do an excursion or just go for a walk really. And then on to the 3rd port day in a row, the capital of Iceland, Reykjavik. Now you can walk from the port into the centre of Reykjavik if you want to, but it's about 3 to 4 kilometers. We took a free shuttle bus. Now I've heard that sometimes there's a free shuttle. Sometimes there isn't. I've no idea how you'd find out if there will be one when you visit, but there were a long row of taxis in the port, so whether or not there's a free or a paid for shuttle, you can always grab a taxi. The first place we visited was the massive church on the hilltop, which is an iconic building visible from nearly everywhere in Reykjavik. It's located at the end of the Rainbow Road and is a stunning building when you see it up close. We decided not to go inside because it was a Sunday morning and there was a service taking place. After that, we walked all the way over to Flyover Iceland. As an aside, it's a lot further to walk there than you think it's going to be, or at least further than I thought it would be. It's about 2.5 kilometers or 35 minutes, but it's well worth the trip. I've been to Flyover Vancouver before, so I knew what to expect. There's no photography allowed inside, so the footage I'm showing you here is from their website. There's a bit of a walk-in tour around some video installations, giving you a bit of history about Iceland, and then you enter the main simulator. It's amazing, apart from the machine that keeps spraying water in your face. After that, we tried to go to the lava experience, which is just around the corner, but sadly they were fully booked for the day. So we decided to visit a more unusual museum on the way home, the Icelandic Phallological Museum. This really isn't one for the kids, okay? This is the world's only genuine penis museum with jars of hundreds of preserved specimens. Look, I can't show you much on this video because I want to try and keep it PG, but I will say that this place is fascinating and well worth a visit. Even if you just go to the gift shop, you can pick up some truly unique souvenirs. After that, it was back on board for another 2 days on our way to Greenland. I managed to get my strawberry daiquiri quota in, you'll be pleased to hear, and my daughter found a piano in the chapel and used it for some sneaky practice. On the second of those sea days, we decided to have our evening meal in Plank's Barbecue. If you're a vegetarian, then you won't be interested at all, but for meat eaters, this place is amazing. I have to say, I loved it. You get given a tray full of food, you pick 2 meats from a choice of 4. I chose sausages and shredded chicken. You get your meat, some pickles, potato wedges, barbecue sauce, sweet apple sauce, onion rings, coleslaw, mixed bean chilli, a brioche bun, and a big bowl of mac and cheese. Seriously, there was so much food that I couldn't finish it, but every single item was just perfect. Anyway, it was while we were eating this meal, sailing towards Greenland, that we saw our first iceberg. It floated right past our window. Even the waiter was excited to see it. Waking up the next morning in Qaqortoq in Greenland, and we could see a few icebergs on the horizon. The ports in Greenland are quite small, not like your usual cruise ports at all, and because of that, you need to take a tender off the ship. Now, we made a big mistake and got up too late, so didn't collect our tender ticket until rush hour. It took about 2 hours from collecting our ticket until we were allowed to go on the tender. So my top tip is either go really early or wait until lunchtime when everyone else wants to get back on the ship. Qaqortoq itself is a city, although you wouldn't think that from walking around. It's quite small, but they have everything, including a supermarket. And I know I'm not pronouncing Qaqortoq properly. Sorry to everyone from Greenland, but it's a difficult word for me to say because it has sounds in it that are not in my language. Top tip number 2, take insect repellent because there are a lot of flies. It was raining a bit for us, but not heavy enough to ruin the day or indeed enough to stop the flies. We had a walk around, bought some souvenirs and headed back to the ship. It's a nice place to spend an hour walking around, and there are a couple of museums here to take a look at too. Because it's a tender port, the queue to get back was consistently quite long and unsheltered, so keep that in mind. The sail away from Qaqortoq though was spectacular. We went past a number of huge icebergs that were quite close to the ship, and as we sailed out into the open there were hundreds of icebergs visible right to the horizon. And finally, our very last port of call was Nanortalik. We anchored right next to an iceberg, and with this being another tender port, the tender actually cruised right past it, giving us a superb close-up view. But once I saw the mountains behind Nanortalik, I was speechless. I have never seen anything like them before in my life. They were sharp and steep, like something from a fantasy film like Lord of the Rings or something. They almost didn't look real. Nanortalik itself is very small. You would probably want to use this port as an opportunity to take a whale watching or close-up iceberg excursion, but there's still lots to see in the town itself. There are a couple of gift shops, lots of traditional houses dotted all around. There's a church that you can take a look inside, and there's an open air museum to visit if the weather is nice, which does give you some great views. After Nanortalik, we then had 4 final sea days on our way back to Southampton, so there were lots more eating of burgers, premium desserts, and even a formal night meal in the main dining room. We'd had a brilliant time, but were a little disappointed that the weather had been too cloudy around Iceland for us to have seen the Northern Lights. And then, on the very last night before we got into Southampton, I got an alert from the Aurora Watch app. We went out on the balcony and we were treated to a spectacular display from them. I couldn't pick them up with a video camera and they were barely visible with the naked eye, but I managed to get lots of stills using slow exposure on my phone. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe for free to see more videos from us. I'm going to end this video now by leaving you with a few of those Northern Lights photos I took. See you next time.